I'm proud of Apart for what it is. It's a very focused magazine with editorial policies, and that's one way of doing it. When you have to put news out there, I think the people who do it best and have been doing it best for about 2 years are the New York Times. I worry about them and about every newspaper. I worry about the financial hit they're taking, and I worry that somehow the loss of the sale of the paper version will affect their ability to have journalists and editors and producers. They really need those. Um, the New York Times seems to, and I mean, it wins awards for its information graphics, which are amazing. If you remember a couple of years ago when that plane flew into the building, and you felt awful, like, wow, that was such a horrible tragedy, but I'm really digging this graphic. You know what I mean? You just kind of felt bad, deservedly. But it's really the way they lay articles out, the way you can find types of content, the way they have, I think they're doing it brilliantly. I think New York Magazine, uh, with uh, with creative director Ian Adelman, is doing it brilliantly. Uh, there are a lot of magazines that don't know how to do it, how to communicate online, and one of the problems, I mean, the biggest problem they're having, there are two problems that they're having. One is if you don't have a web strategy, and they all sort of figured out in the 90s that they were going to need one, but a lot of them just bogged down in arguing about it, and they don't know how to have one, or they hired the wrong consultant or the wrong designer. They hired a designer that gave them something that looked awesome but wasn't really strategic and wasn't a way forward. One problem that we have, that they have, uh, is money, and the other is the web. Those are the two problems. So the money problem is, I mean, there was a while back we did redesigned Ad Age, and when we redesigned Ad Age, they were going through that phase that every paper goes through where maybe we can charge for our content. And if the web had evolved that way, the answer would be yes. Instead of paying, $40 a year for a paper subscription, I'll pay $35 a year for a digital subscription. That would have worked. And it should work. And the information is just as valuable. But whether you're paying for it or not, but people expect web content to be free. And even though people keep saying it's the end of free, I don't foresee the end of free. People still think they can go online and get it free, and if they can't get it from you, they'll go somewhere else. Um, the New York Times for a while had the archives, and they were charging for the archives. They gave up on that, right? They gave up on that. Ad Age had archives, and they sort of, when they needed to go that way, all we could advise them to do was keep that as simple as possible. Make it really clear. All this stuff is free, and this stuff isn't, and here's what it costs. And give them one-time fee or subscription, and make the value of subscribing clear, and that's it. But we really advise them to be free. The problem now is if you're free, you've got to work with advertising. If you're the New York Times, you need to make a lot of money. If you're with the Washington Post, you need to make a lot of money. So you need to have lots of ads on the page, and the advertisers are constantly saying, well, two ads on either side of the masthead and at the top of the masthead and in the right column, we can get that, down the street. We really want our ad to explode the browser window and completely fill the person's screen and not be closable. And if you won't give that to us, your competitor will. If you're not selling your print magazine, you're only selling the web, and you need millions of dollars to finance your operation, then the old church and state idea of advertising starts to go out the window, and that's scary too. It's scary that newspapers might stop, that some great newspapers might stop or might not be able to deliver the quality that they once did, and it's scary that in order to do what they once did, they might have to schlock their user experience up. I think sponsorship is a wonderful model, right? If you find the right sponsor for the right content. So if this is, if your movie reviews section is sponsored by the Sundance Channel, I'm just making that up, but that's good exposure for the channel. If you do it in ways where the logo is ever present, there's subtle ways of doing that make me like your newspaper and the Sundance Channel. If they can find the right price point with that, that might be something that I think Smaller ads with less competition. I mean, every designer wants that, right? You know, one ad on the page, it's an easy sell to a designer. If you could do that and make it work by having a smaller, a smaller magazine with fewer that requires fewer resources, that can work. Sponsorship can work. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm scared when I think about great publications facing, in sort of a life or death moment, and all they can count on is advertisers who want to pay less and less.